step 12, the home stretch. Oh, you want to give me your question? All right, so this is the last question of step 11.
No one else is allowed to write a question.
I've been asking God what the next step should be in the day I'm in, and I don't know what the hell I'm doing, really. So I create a schedule and try to follow it. But I wonder. This is a way of life. It's 12 steps as a way of life. The intuitive guidance becomes more and more clear as I get closer to step 11. Because I'm still filled with all this stuff. If I still am filled with resentments and fear and people I've harmed and amends that I owe, it's very challenging for me to have a clear channel to the power. That doesn't mean that I wait, because I prayed all the time. But that channel gets clearer and clearer as you clear away the crap. It just makes sense, right? So, you're not going to be great at it right off the bat. We just read that. I'm going to make mistakes. I'm not going to know. That's why in AA we have sponsors. And the sponsor helps me. It's a step guide, not a life coach. Just a step guide. They guide me through how to apply the principles of the 12 steps as a way of life. And how to ask for guidance and how to accept guidance. And then, in the beginning I ran everything by Ted. Everything. Because I knew if I didn't, there was a good chance I was going to hurt myself and others. I was more concerned about myself at the time, but I could definitely see the damage. So, you're going to know more. Just stay on the path. Do this thing as a way of life, and you'll be amazed. Before you're halfway through. Step 9. Not before you're halfway through. Before you're halfway through step 9. Step 12. Having had a spiritual awakening as the result of these steps, I try to carry this message to alcoholics and to practice these principles in all of my affairs. So, I'm going to read a little bit out of the 12 and 12 because it's just so beautiful. The joy of living is the theme of AA's 12 steps. The joy of living. Not the drudgery, not the, oh God, another day of living. The joy of living. And action is the key word. Here I turn toward my fellow alcoholics who are in distress. Here I experience the kind of giving that asks no rewards. Here I begin to practice all 12 steps of the program in my daily life so that I and those about me may find emotional sobriety. Those about me may find emotional sobriety. When the 12th step is in its full implication, it is really talking about a kind of love that has no price tag on it. Emotional sobriety, one guy got up at a retreat and he said emotional sobriety is being able to say yes without getting a resentment, and being able to say no without feeling guilty. Saying yes because I want to, and saying no because it's the right thing to do. That's an amazing way of life. Step 12 is about carrying... okay, so I'm having a spiritual awakening, I hope I am, as a result of these steps. In order to keep me in the program, I have to try to carry this message to other alcoholics. Step 12 is not about... It's not about me helping other people for them. I'm not here to help you. I came on this retreat for my life. And I got to be at the podium for my life because that's how my power feels about me. It knew that I needed to be consciously connected the entire weekend, and the only way to get me here was to put me up here, standing up here. That's how much my higher power loves me, and I was willing. But I didn't come up here to help you. I came up here to have my experience with my power for my retreat. And God puts you in my life. And you're a gift from God. A sponsee is a gift from God. Because you know what happens to me? If you don't call me and ask me questions, I forget how important it is for me to read for my life. If you don't spend time with me and want to grow more in this program, then I don't grow in the program. Because I already know all this stuff for my life. And I start slipping into not practicing the program. Because I know it. I got it. I've got the wife and the kid and the house and the car. I got everything my mind told me I was never going to have. I have great friends. But I need AA. So God disciplines me in this simple way. When I want to watch TV and sit around and do nothing, my phone rings. And a guy asks me a question. And you know what the craziest thing is? Every time I answer that question, today I pay attention to the answer. Because the power has put that person in my life to ask the question that I need the answer to for my life every single time. And I need to be connected. So I ask the power, what do I say here? Because I don't know what to answer. I don't know the answer for your question. I get to connect with the power. And so God disciplines me in this simple way. The 12-step could have said, having had a spiritual awakening, I now become a teacher and go out and teach guys how to live better. But I don't think that's what happens. I think I get a spiritual awakening and I have to try to carry this message for my life so that I'm continued to going forward in the program. If you get anything out of this experience, that's between you and your higher power. It's because you did something during this weekend where you became open and willing and you asked the power to help you to hear something or have an experience. It's not because of me. I have very little to do with what happened there this weekend. Isn't that amazing? I stood up here the whole weekend and talked, but I had very little to do with what actually happened here. And I get to practice these principles in all my affairs. And then what happens is emotional sobriety happens all around me. My child, she's 13. From 12 and a half to 13 and a half, she went crazy. I mean, she got a bad attitude about everything and everyone, and especially with her mom. You know, girls and moms, boys and dads. She had they were having a very rough time around the house, and I was doing a lot of sticking up for one and then sticking up for, and then something said, whoa. And I just went into my daughter's room about 2 months ago, and I sat down on her bed, and I didn't say anything. I just sat there with her, you know, instead of watching TV or doing something I wanted to do. I said, Power, what can I do to help this relationship? What can I do? And sometimes I just go be with her. You know, it sounds so stupid when you say it out loud, but for me, I wanted to watch TV or read a bicycle magazine or do something that I wanted to do. I don't want to sit in a 13-year-old's room and listen to top 40 music. But I went in and I did it, and I just sat there on her bed. And at first she was like, Dad, get out of my room. Just get out of here. And I just sat there, and I wouldn't go. I wouldn't leave. Something said stay. And I just stayed there on that bed, and then she got tired of trying to kick me out. And then she softened. And then we sat there. And then we started talking about music. And then we started talking. And since that day, we have had a new relationship where we actually talk. And I have a relationship with a 13-and-a-half-year-old that's beyond my wildest dreams. I can't even believe it. I can go in a room and we talk about stuff. And we hang out. And it's because I turned off the TV and went in there. and spent time with her, and it was painful at first. This was not a fun, this was the war zone. But that's the way it works in my life. And she's getting better, and we are getting better together. And I get to build relationships with the people in my life and have some emotional sobriety. She wrote a paper once, made me cry. She wrote a paper once. Her teacher said, "What's the most important thing?" And she wrote a paper, and the paper she wrote was, she wrote, "The most important thing is to be in the moment." And she wrote a paper about being in the moment, because that's all I ever talk about in my house, is being in the moment. And the guys come over and we talk about being in the moment. And that, who knows? When I was her age, I was a complete nightmare. Maybe there are as many definitions of spiritual awakening as there are people who have them. But certainly each genuine one has something in common with all the others. And these things which they have in common are not too hard to understand. When a man or a woman has a spiritual awakening, the most important meaning of it is that I have now become able to do, feel, and believe that which I could not do before on my unaided strength and resources alone. I have been granted a gift which amounts to a new state of consciousness and being. I have been set on a path which tells me I am really going somewhere, that life is not a dead end, not something to be endured or mastered. In a very real sense, I have been transformed, because I have laid hold of a source of strength, which in one way or another I have hitherto denied myself. I find myself in possession of a degree of honesty, tolerance, unselfishness, peace of mind, and love of which I had thought myself quite incapable. What I have received is a free gift, and yet usually, at least in some small part, I have made myself ready to receive it. That's what's happening here. I get to have a whole new life, completely different, where it's now exciting to me. I said to Paul said, "I can't go on the retreat. I don't have the money. I'm sorry." That's what he said. And I looked at him and I said, "Paul, you just tell the universe that you're going on the retreat. You just make the decision that you're going on the retreat. And don't worry about where the money's coming from. You're going to be there." And here he is, sitting right here in the front row. Before we had that conversation, it was impossible that you be here. In your mind, it was impossible. In my mind, it was impossible that you could not be here. I knew that if you went for this and you said, "Power, I want to be on that retreat," how does that happen? How are you going to make that happen? That you would be here and you're here. And so you're a miracle, and you're my miracle. And there's other guys who said they couldn't make it, that made it. And there are guys that turned away from this retreat, that said, "I'm not going if that guy Randy's going to lead the whole retreat." There are. In the Sermon on the Mount, it talks about the rich man who had great possessions. And they're not talking about money. They're talking about old ideas. I have the possessions of my old ideas. And I'm so attached to those old ideas that I can't get into heaven. That's why the rich man can't get into heaven. Not because he has too much money to pull up there, but because I'm holding on to it, my possessions, so tightly that I can't have an open mind for a new experience. To be here right now. To have something new. Because my power says so. I get to have an open mind today, and I get to be here. And I'm so grateful that you guys showed up and that you're here with me, because I couldn't do this without you. It's impossible. And Tony put this whole thing together and made it happen and makes it all happen. I mean, it's so easy. It seems like it's some kind of magic place, right? There's nobody checks you in, nobody checks you out. The food's always here. Everything we need is here. The room's set up. It's like there's an AA fairies or something. It's fairies. It's Tony and Nick. It just happens from where I stand. I just showed up and started talking. But everything was in place so that it could happen, and it doesn't happen by accident. A lot of hard work went into making this thing happen. And guys came from all over. A guy came from China. And from Egypt or Las Vegas.
Even Las Vegas.
And from right down the road. We make it easy for Tommy. We have the retreat in his neighborhood because we want to make sure he's here. And it's a good life, guys. This is a way of life where I get to have a spiritual awakening and I get to be the man I could never be. The man I always wanted to be. The man I always thought I was. I tried to do well my whole life, but I could never do well. But today in AA, I'm doing well. I give AA the credit for everything that's good in my life. I don't know any of this. It was all given to me by these men, Bob Anderson and Ted Bratter, for sure. But I spent time with Gino and Jim. It was just given to me day after day, just heaped on me, and a higher power, which led me to Los Angeles to never be a working actor. So I think that wraps up our discussion of the 12 steps.
Like the star of the Hollywood Randy Mermel.
Yeah, that'll make my head explode. That'll ruin the whole deal. Does anybody have any questions about step 12? Oh.
Only one so far.
I don't call my sponsor nearly enough. Do I ask God about my problems and victory, but I have trouble asking questions or sharing everyday stuff? What should my attitude be toward this? Well, if you really love your sponsor, you should call him more often. Because your sponsor needs as much help as he can get. You know, that's the deal. When I first got sober, I would go across the street with this guy. He was an old guy. He was 52. I was 27. I'd go across the street with that guy, and I would have lunch with him every day. And I thought I was helping him because he needed someone to talk to. And what I realized today is that I was helping him as much as he was helping me, because it's a two-way street. We go together. Nobody does this thing alone. You can't do it alone. It's impossible. It takes two alcoholics to go into this way of life. We need each other. New guys, old, it doesn't matter. The new guy is as important as the old guy. And the new guy has just as much to offer the old guy as the old guy has the new guy. Sometimes more. Share your life with the power every day, right now. Share everything. Everything. There's nothing you can't share with that power. My sponsor said to me, there is nothing that I can do better by myself than I could do with me and my higher power. There's nothing. So why not bring him into everything? Thank you for letting me be here this weekend.
Let's take a break for just a moment.
Oh, sure.
We have a number of questions. This is the time where we had the overview, where we're going to answer all the questions that are left over from